There are growing calls for social media sites to rein in hate, extremism, and misinformation following Facebook's decision to temporarily uphold its suspension of former President Trump's account. The company accused the former president of inciting violence and encouraging his supporters to storm the U.S. Capitol on January 6th. Critics have also taken to task Facebook and other sites for failing to permanently ban him from their platforms. They say he continues to spread lies about the election. For more on this, I want to bring in Duke University professor Chris Bale. He is also the author of Breaking the Social Media Prism: How to Make Our Platforms Less Polarizing. Chris, I have to say, I love the idea of actively working to make our society less polarizing. Given that goal, what's your take on Facebook's decision and its implications for handling misinformation moving forward, especially when it comes to politicians and other people with massive social media following?
Well, I think this underscores how hard it is to draw the boundary between free speech and public safety. Facebook invested $130 million, found 20 of the world's leading experts on this issue, and they took 4 months to decide that they need 6 more months to figure out what to do. So what this underscores for me is that we have deeper problems. We were polarized before Trump. We've been polarized since Trump left office, and we're going to be polarized for some time to come. So until we get to the root cause of the divisions that are so clearly separating us right now, we're going to continue to struggle with this type of decision.
So, Chris, let's talk about those root causes, because you've done extensive research on polarization in society, and you say that one of the main issues is the growing gap between social media and reality. What exactly do you mean by this?
That's right. And this is so important for people to understand. Let's look at Twitter. 73% of the tweets about politics are currently being authored by about 6% of Twitter users. Those 6% of Twitter users have very extreme views. What does this mean? It means that we can all feel more polarized than we really are. The growing gap between social media and reality, I think, has become one of the most, powerful sources of polarization today. We're simply not meeting the, moderates on the other side. A recent study from Pew suggests that a vast majority of moderate Republicans never tweet about politics or never post about politics on any social media platform.
Oh, it's interesting. When moderate voices are being left out of the conversation, all we hear when we look at these social media sites are the extreme views. Chris, you also write about how the main problem when it comes to political polarization is us, as in social media users and Americans. But many activists and critics want Congress to step in to pass laws and regulations aimed at these social media companies and specifically their algorithms. Tell us what you think the solution is.
Yeah, I wish I could tell you that there's just some kind of switch deep inside Facebook's source code that could be thrown to fix this problem. But, the research is becoming increasingly clear. There's no easy fix with algorithms. Things like echo chambers, foreign misinformation campaigns, even algorithms that might be radicalizing people. There's just not a lot of support. This seems to either be not happening at all or happening only very rarely. And so certainly, a small number of cases can be extraordinarily concerning. But we need to think about the root causes, how our own behavior is powering these divisions. Because, even if we could, compel Facebook to make sweeping reforms, we'd still be left with a deeply divided country that would continue to antagonize each other online.
Well, based on your research, Chris, do you think that social media companies are actively working to try and put these reforms into place, given that their incentives are aligned to keep amplifying this extremism, amplifying this polarity, because it drives more social media use?
That's right. We have to ask about the incentive structure of social media. Why do we have this small minority of extremists, speaking on behalf of everyone else? It's because they're getting a powerful sense of belonging and status from saying extreme things, new followers, new likes, and so on. And so what we need to do, I think, is rethink the incentive structure from the top down. Right now, people are rewarded for saying increasingly extreme stuff and preaching to the choir. What if social media companies ranked the order of messages in our feeds according to those that appealed to lots of different types of people? Imagine for a moment if you could boost, really the effective bipartisan communicators. And that's exactly what we're trying to do in the Duke Polarization Lab. We've built bots, bipartisanship leaderboard, and all sorts of other tools that your viewers can use to try to turn down the extremism on the platform and turn up the moderation.
Kind of feel like that even though we're all individual users, it feels like a call to action for all of us to amplify sane, moderate, pleasant voices in our own social media use. One last question for you. In the past, obviously, media companies have policed themselves in order to avoid government intervention. Where are we now in this moment on that question about self-policing versus having external entities come in and really regulate this?
Listen, we're getting better, but we are far from where we need to be. And that's because these challenges aren't just difficult in the US, they're difficult all around the world. Content moderators have to make exceptionally difficult decisions about what counts as free speech and what's a threat to public safety in places like Syria or Myanmar, not just the US. So we are far away from having permanent long-term solutions. I think the thing that concerns me is if we come down too hard with government regulation and hold these platforms to really high standards, only a small number of them are going to be able to afford the infrastructure necessary to do this content moderation. We may paradoxically reinforce Facebook's monopoly on the market.
Christopher Bale, what a pleasant, moderate conversation we've had. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks so much, Lana. It's a pleasure to be here.